here. And obviously it's a little bit weird not having an actual audience. I would love to do this at an actual conference session. In fact, this specific session was supposed to go on at SharePoint conference, which was supposed to happen in Vegas, which hopefully will happen next year now. But still glad to be presenting here. The topic today that I'll be discussing, that I'm discussing now, is deploying Microsoft 365 learning pathways to get the best use out of Microsoft 365. All right, I'm going to get going over here. My name is Asif Rehmani. I am a trainer. Visual SP is a company that I work at. I've been an MVP with Microsoft since 2007 and love to do these type of conferences where I can truly, or try my best at least, to help people understand the things that they want to understand, especially in the Microsoft ecosystem. Here's my Twitter ID, Asif Rehmani, and email address I'll share later as well. Feel free to reach out, but just, I don't have it here, but let me actually just type it in quickly just so you have that handy if you need to reach out. Here we go, asif@visualsp.com. Okay. Alrighty, a few things here. First, as I was mentioning here, the next conference that's going to happen in person, knock on wood, hopefully, is going to be March 23rd to 25th, 2021, Las Vegas, Nevada at MGM Resort. I'll probably be presenting a similar session there as well, with a lot more meat to it than I'll be presenting today. Not that there's not enough meat in it today. There's a lot of good content that I'll be presenting, but this is an evolving story for learning pathways. So I'll be presenting that over there as well. Here are sponsors. Definitely please visit their virtual booths and their websites. They do a lot for the conference. Definitely they deserve the kudos. And there's also a raffle that you can find at this bit.ly link over there. So good luck to you if you do decide to join the raffle. All right. And then lastly, there's a GoFundMe charity as well. Obviously our frontline workers are doing so much these days. Definitely please see if you can fund, and even if some of the proceeds I've been told, as it says over here, from the sponsors are going to this relief fund. Wonderful to be able to participate in that. Alrighty, let me get going with the actual presentation here now. So first of all, the expectations of this presentation. Let me talk about what I will focus on and what I will not focus on, because I think it's equally important. So the focus is going to be very much on the business side of things of Microsoft 365 learning pathways. Obviously, you'll see exactly how it's installed, deployed, configured, and user experience. But taking the whole thing from a business point of view, what's in it for you? What's in it for your users? Why you should care? That's the focus. The focus is not going to be on the technical jargon. What I mean by that is the actual content and product and all that stuff is being served from GitHub, and there's a lot of technical stuff that's happening there, but we won't be going into that. This is not the presentation which talks about the exact bits and pieces that are flowing through the cloud and getting to your tenant. It's just going to take the overall view of it and the actual business aspect of things. All right. The agenda is as following: understanding the needs for user training and common solutions, overview of Microsoft Learning Pathways, installation, configuration, and user experience, getting users to use Microsoft Learning Pathways, very important, otherwise what are we doing this for? Measuring the MLP usage, I'll show you exactly what's available. Updating and roadmap of Microsoft Learning Pathways. And then we'll end with the Better Together story, the partner story of Microsoft Learning Pathways. I'll be talking about exactly what Microsoft Learning Pathways is and how it is an open source solution. So there are opportunities to build on top of that. So I'll talk about the Better Together story at the end as well. Now, those of you who have not gotten a chance to meet in person before, once again, thanks very much for coming to the session. This is a quick snapshot of who I am. I love presenting at conferences, virtual and in-person ones. There's a lot of YouTube content and other kind of content that I've produced over the years as well, video content. So you'll find this all over the place. I've been in this industry, in this arena since 2001. First doing SharePoint on premises, then SharePoint Online, then Microsoft 365, and then a whole lot more stuff as well within the Microsoft ecosystem. Over the years, I've had a chance to author some of the books as well, as you can see. And as I mentioned, that I've been an MVP since Microsoft with Microsoft since 2007. It's been a pleasure to serve the community that way. And at the end, here we go. Here's my email address, asif@visualsp.com. And also you can get a lot more information about myself and the company at visualsp.com. Okay, let's get going. So the main need that we're talking about here is that we need our users to feel confident and supported and trained using Microsoft 365, right? At the end of the day, especially with the remote working situation that many of us find ourselves in, we want people to, wherever they are in their mobile devices, regular devices, just to feel supported and they have the answers that they're looking for. Not necessarily just the training, but the answers to get their job done. Very important. The usual way for all that stuff has been, we build a knowledge portal, a learning portal, usually on SharePoint, right? We put a bunch of videos and documents, articles, links to external content, all kinds of great resources. And many times the content is bought from a vendor or it's created internally. And then you link to the portal and wish and hope for the best. Fingers crossed, right? People will go there, magical things will happen. And many times it does work, which is great. Many of us have done that for, actually, I've spoken to hundreds, literally, of folks who have done something similar in all types of organizations and industries around the world. So the challenge has always been the following. Well, this is one of the big challenges. There's other challenges too, but the big challenge has been the videos and other content that you have. It must be kept updated by you. Usually it's one person or a very small team of people that's supporting a lot of users, a big user community, right? That could be hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people. And that becomes very difficult to manage everything, to keep everything updated. Solution to this is Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways. All right, let's dig into this. First of all, what is Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways? Let's talk about that. All right, so what Learning Pathways is, it's a learning portal, not an LMS, a learning portal. It's created as a SharePoint communication site within your Microsoft 365 tenant. Now, the content that's in the learning portal is all different Microsoft 365 apps, such as SharePoint, Yammer, OneDrive, Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all kinds of content. There's hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content, mostly videos and articles. That's what you're going to find in there. Now, the good news, the content is updated automatically and curated and delivered by Microsoft into your portal, which is wonderful, right? This has not happened before with Microsoft Office 365, so glad that it's happening. Just a quick technical thing over here, as I was mentioning before, GitHub is the main method where all this content is being, being given to you and your tenant, and it's happening automatically. One thing you want to make sure that your company, your organization is not blocking GitHub. If it is blocking GitHub, then this will not work. Okay. Your own training content can be added to this portal, which is wonderful that you can do that. And it's an open source solution created by Microsoft. So as I mentioned before, it is an actual solution. It is open source. It is not a product. And actually, let me talk a little bit more about what it's not as well. So what Learning Pathways is not. It is not a product. It is an open source solution. Learning Pathways is not an LMS. It's not a learning management system. And the way I think about learning management systems in general is you have, of course, a library of items that you can assign to people, depending on their groups, their permissions, stuff like that. And then you can measure progress. That's not what this is. And there's no intention that I've known of for Microsoft to go that route either, to become an LMS. Okay, I'll be showing you a bunch of these things as well. Currently, I'm giving all this content in slide deck. Once we get a little bit further off, I'll show you some of these things. First things first, installation. How do you get it installed? Keep in mind a couple of these prerequisites. The who of the person that would get this installed is the tenant administrator. Okay, so you have to be the Microsoft 365 tenant administrator in order to install it. And you have to have an app catalog site already at the tenant level. And if you don't have that, you can easily create it. The slide deck, which also will be available to you afterwards, it's also on slideshare.net as well, by the way. If you just search for Learning Pathways, you'll find this under my name. It has links to all these different things. So how do I get help about app catalog? There's an actual link to that of how you can make an app catalog. Now, sometimes when you make an app catalog, it actually takes a little bit before it's available and it's usable by Learning Pathways. So if it's not working right away, you need to give it about 30 minutes and then it should work after that. Here's the exact install process. First, you navigate to this URL, provisioning.sharepointpnp.com. Next, you click on view the designs and solution, then Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways. And by the way, I'll be showing you all that stuff very soon. You click on Add to your tenant button. You read the permissions, accept it, submit with your credential, with your contact email, fill out a quick form, and you're good to go. Now, what I've done, by the way, as part of preparing for this presentation is I actually made a bunch of YouTube videos showing you all this stuff. Okay, so you'll find once you get the slide deck or you get this presentation, when you click on this YouTube link, in fact, let me actually do that right now, show you exactly what you should find. Okay, so here we go, 3-minute video, quickly, no intro, nothing like that, just directly goes into what you need to know of installing Microsoft Learning Pathways. And I'll show you a few of these things right now in the presentation. But what I'm saying is that if you want a thorough understanding of exactly what it is step by step, you'll want to click on these videos and check it out on YouTube. Okay, so let's look at some of these things here briefly. As I was mentioning, first you start your journey with provisioning. Let me see if I'm in the right place. Yeah. So provisioning, here it is, provisioning.sharepointpnp.com. So you start here, you click on view the designs, solutions, and then Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways. Yeah. When you're here, you click on add to your tenant. Now, you want to be signed in, obviously, in your tenant, so you want to use the same browser that you already signed into your tenant. And when you click on add to your tenant, it should recognize who you are. I don't know what's going to do right now because I'm using of course, a sample tenant over here. I won't go further at this point over here because I already have it installed, but what it should do is it recognize you, asks you who you are, get you assigned the permission, and then goes ahead and actually does it. Actually, in fact, what the easier way would be for me to show you some visuals like this. Here we go, in the YouTube video. So this is the form that you would have to fill out. Okay. You fill out the form, you put in your email address, you put in where you want the site to be located. In this particular case, it always recommends that you put it at the site's managed path and then O365CL. You don't have to keep this if you don't want to. You can change it, but that's the default. Click on provision. Once you click on provision, all the good magic happens at the back end automatically, which is wonderful. Okay, so that's a quick, easy install story of what you can do. Now let's move on to the next thing over here. And as I mentioned, definitely feel free to watch this video. It's going to give you exactly what you need to know step by step. The next thing, equally important, when the install happens, what the heck is Learning Pathways installing at my tenant? You'll want to know this thing, right? You don't want just to be completely blinded by exactly what's happening. So 2 things are happening. The first is the Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways app, the application gets installed in your app catalog, and that's what this is showing here. All right, you go to your app catalog, you'll see Microsoft Learning Pathways right there, and it will show the version as well. So in this case, for example, you see the version is 3.3. Oh, here we go, 3.3 or 3.0. I don't know why I'm saying 3.3. Okay, And the second thing, a SharePoint communication site gets created in your tenant to host the learning pathways content, administration screens, and everything in between. Okay, and that's what this looks like. So I'll be showing you all that stuff very, very soon. Configuration of it. Before you get going and start opening it up to your users, you'll need to understand the learning pathways first, right? What is it that you can do, cannot do? And then after that, go from there. So just a quick snapshot here before I dig into it more. When you go to home, and then there's actually a link below that, it says learning administration. When you go in there, you'll see this. And in here, as it shows over here, you got the category. Okay, these are categories right here. Then you got the subcategory. I'll put those in blue. Subcategories. And when you click on a subcategory like this Outlook here, then you see all these playlists. And these playlists is where the magic happens. Inside the playlist are the assets, which I'll talk about as well. And the assets are the specific learning units, the items that people will look at to, to get their understanding of OneDrive and SharePoint and Yammer and everything in between. Okay, so from the admin perspective, this is a terminology you should be aware of. The basic configuration steps are as follows. First of all, if you're the tenant admin and you're the one who actually installed learning pathways, it is a possibility, highly likely actually, that there is some other person in your organization, in your team, who is the business owner of it, who's a learning and development person in charge, and that person is the one who wants to configure the things as they want. So you want to make that person or the people, a group of people, owners of that learning pathways communication site. That's the first thing, if that's needed. Second, you definitely want to hide the navigation elements you don't want users to see. When you open up learning pathways, first, there's a lot of stuff admin related that you don't want users to see. And other things also that learning pathways gives you that you may or may not want to show. So I'll show you exactly what I mean by that in a few minutes. Then you fill in the placeholder information. So there's some stuff where it says, okay, put your events here, put your maybe a link to your contact, help desk, stuff like that. You fill in all that. And then you want to hide the application content you don't want users to see. For example, I know many organizations that don't have Yammer turned on. All right, so they usually hide Yammer. Same thing with Sway or things like that, where if I don't want my users to see it, let me hide that instead of getting them confused. And last, but not, well, actually second last, you want to open up access, right? Provide everyone access to the Learning Pathways site. By default, it is not open to everybody, which is a good thing, but you don't want to forget about doing this step before you do the last step, which is linking to the actual site. Provide everybody access. I'll show you exactly how that's done also, and then link to the Learning Pathways site from places that your users will see. There's a video of all this stuff as well. So if you do see the YouTube video, which actually I'll just go ahead and click on this one as well, so we have that going in case I need to refer to that. All right, so this video shows you very, very quickly within, well, in this case, actually almost 7 minutes, but still very specifically what you need to do for basic configuration. I'm going to show you some of these things right now. Okay, so to start with, this is what the Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways site looks like when it's installed. This is the exact same view that you will see and your users will see. Okay, so they will also see Get Started with Admin Success Center. This button is really there for you. When you go here, it shows you what you can do as the administrator to make things a success, which is wonderful, but do you really want your users to come over here and take a look at that? Chances are no, you don't. So since this is a simple regular SharePoint communication site, what you would do, which I'll just quickly show you, go to Edit. All this is just a regular web part. You delete it, okay? Same thing for other stuff as well, events, news. If you don't have content for it, you're not ready, you can hide stuff, you can delete stuff and get rid of whatever you don't need. All right. Other stuff is there's a lot of good stuff here. This is how it comes out of the box. You have the Admin Success Center, Learning Pathways Administration. You got these links over here. You may or may not want to show all these links. So if you don't want to show it, you'll want to delete it. For example, the Microsoft Technical Community, a great resource for you. Do you want your users to go there? Chances are no, you don't want them to go there. So you'll want to just go ahead and go into edit and just as a regular SharePoint communication site, obviously. So you can just go ahead and say, remove this thing. Okay. Very simple to do. I'll go ahead and cancel for right now. I'm going to make changes here, but I just want you to be aware for some of these things, that you want to do. As I mentioned, also, you want to give someone else, if it makes sense, the ownership of this site. So it's a regular site. You go site permissions from the gear, and you can give site ownership to other people. And similarly, once you're ready to open this site, you want to give everyone access to this site. And you can just do a regular share site, add what I do usually is everyone. And then this just shows everyone except external users in this case. And that's what I've done in this particular case. And that's why it shows everyone has read access. Make sense? I wish I could see your faces. It would be nice. Maybe someday I will at an actual session in person. But today I'll just hope that you understand what I'm saying over here. Next thing, moving onwards, the administration of this whole thing happens from home. From home, and then here we go, home, Learning Pathways Administration. Now, before I go there, let me actually also show you that if I go into the Microsoft 365 training block right here, this is what the users see by default. All these products, Outlook, OneDrive, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all that good stuff. And as I was saying before, if I don't want my users to see something, for example, Sway, if I wanted to hide that, or Admin Success Center, or tools, which definitely I would recommend hiding right off the bat. You need to actually do that, okay? So, come on, here we go. Home, Learning Pathways Administration. Okay, this is what the back end looks like. As I was mentioning before, you got the categories, you got subcategories, and you got more. And I'm going to go to a subcategory, Sway. In this case, hide that. This eye icon right here is the one that's used to hide. You can hide specific subcategories. You can also hide specific playlists. Now, since I've hidden that, I'm actually going to show you what the user experience looks like here. I have another window open. In this window, I have Miss Adele Vance logged in. She is a user. And when she goes to the Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways site, she goes here. Let's see. Refresh. Sway should not be there. Yeah, there we go. So Sway is no longer there. Yeah, and once again, going back to this is my admin again, the administrator. All I had done was went to Sway subcategory, clicked on this to not show it. Now, if I click on it, it would show it again. Let me do that. There is no save button after you do it. You just do that and that's done. So let me prove that out to you. Now I'm logged in again as Adele in different profile. Refresh here. And here we go. Sway is back. Okay, so you can hide products. You can hide playlists, which this is I'll talk about the user experience a little bit more later. But these are the different playlists, and when they go into a playlist, then there's different assets. We'll get to all that stuff in just a few minutes here. Okay, so that's basic configuration of what you can do. Let me see if I missed something specific, something big. Yeah, I think I got more or less the important stuff here. As I was saying before, the videos that we have, the basic configuration, for example, will show you a lot more of exactly what you need to do. All right, I'm going to go back here to my slide deck. Advanced configuration. Now, after the basic configuration is done, the advanced configuration, this is optional stuff. Obviously, you may not do it at this point in time. You might do it later, but it's good to know what you can and cannot do. So I have a list over here of what you, first of all, what you can't do. You cannot change the order of existing products, subcategories, playlists, or assets provided by Microsoft. So as you saw, there were, I forget exactly which product was first, but let's say if it was Outlook, then Word, then Excel. You can't say that I want Excel to be first, or then I want Sway to be second, or something else. That kind of ordering for products and also for playlists within the products and then assets within the playlist, that's not possible. It's just not been given as an option. You also cannot add a new asset to a Microsoft playlist. That's a big one to be aware of. Currently, these playlists are already out there. You can see the assets, but that's about it. You can see them, but you cannot add a new asset to an existing Microsoft playlist, which is a bummer. Also, you cannot edit nor remove Microsoft provided assets. Now that's a big one as well. That you're not able to take an asset, a learning unit from a playlist and say, you know what, I don't want my users to see this. Unfortunately, you cannot remove certain assets, which I know some of you are saying, oh man, that's hard. Now there's a workaround for that, which I'll talk about, but you can't do this out of the box. What you can do, let's talk about some good news here. You can create a new subcategory. So you have categories, you can create subcategories underneath that. You can create a new playlist. Okay, so a new playlist can be created under existing subcategories and also under new subcategories. You can also copy a playlist, then remove or add assets to it. And that's actually the workaround I was talking about. Oops. For this thing over here. Because you cannot edit as assets, but if you really wanted to edit and say, you know what, I do not want this asset to be shown, then what you would do is you copy an existing playlist, and then from there you can remove or add assets to that playlist. Then what you would want to do most probably is you want to go to the original playlist and you probably want to hide that. So there's some maintenance administration burden that gets put on, unfortunately, but that's how it is. And I'm pretty sure that's not going to be changing. That's just how the design is. So it's good to know going into it what you cannot do. There's a video about this as well. Let's see how long this one is. And this shows exactly 7 minutes and 45 seconds. So once again, very, very specific and filled with exactly what you can and cannot do. Okay. Let me take you through some of these things here. Okay, so back in the Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways administration, if I go into the products category, here's different subcategories: Outlook, OneDrive, Word, Excel. If I go all the way to the bottom, here's the way to add a new subcategory. I'll click on the plus sign right here, and you can say something new and save. And here it is. Here's my subcategory. Now within the subcategory, I can make playlists. This is how you make a playlist here. You add a title, description, technology. You have to pick one of the ones that already exists. You can't add a new technology here. And then after that, you choose other metadata. Okay. The category is already in something new, but if you want it to be on a different category, you could do that. Level, beginner, intermediate, advanced, audience. Pick the audience or some metadata you can control, which is great. And then you start adding new assets. Okay, but you have to save this first. That's why it's not letting me do this currently. But instead of doing this, I'm going to do something else. I'll go back into products. You can also take an existing playlist, as I was mentioning before, and you can copy that. Pretty easy to do when you go into, for example, manage your files with OneDrive. You can go ahead and click on copy playlist. Pretty quick. It copies it. And now you got manage your files with OneDrive copy. That I can go ahead and edit. Edit detail. I can change stuff around over here, whatever I wanted to. Okay, change things around here. And as I was saying, that once you make a copy of the playlist, then it lets you do things like adding new assets and taking out existing assets as you wanted to. So here I can say, you know what, let's remove this from playlist. Okay, it's been removed. Now if I go and say new asset, what you can do here regarding adding assets, let me just say test here, is you can either create a new asset page, which would be just a regular SharePoint page that goes into the site pages library and then lets you do whatever you want, or you can enter a URL. If you put in something like in our website address, visualsp.com, that is going to take it as an absolute address. Okay, so if I do that right now, it's going to give me a test. Okay, here we go. Here's the site. Great. If I had just put in Visual SP and you click on open page, it's probably going to say it's not found. Yeah, because it's now trying to look at this as a relative URL. So site page is looking for the Visual SP page. All right. Okay, let me cancel this asset and actually do a new asset again, and then show you once again, test. If I did a create asset page instead, it takes the name, the title that I've given it. It makes a new page using that title, test.aspx. If I had a couple of words in there, it would take those 2 words with a hyphen in between, which is perfect for search purposes. And then it makes a new page with that. Now I can open this page. As I mentioned, this is a regular SharePoint page. There's not much else to it. I can go ahead and start editing this page and adding whatever web parts and stuff you want on there, right? Text, some stuff. Publish. And that's it. Basically, whatever you want to add here, that could be videos, images, text, whatever kind of information you can add for your users, that becomes a learning unit, an asset. All right, hopefully that makes sense. I believe there is a way to ask questions in this session. I'm not aware exactly where those are, but what I'll be doing later is if you can put up questions in, I guess, the chat or whatever the mechanism is, I'll go answer those questions after I'm done with all these things. Currently, I'm just going to go forward with our presentation the way I have it planned. All right. So those were the main things that I wanted to cover here regarding categories, subcategories, copying a playlist, etc. And as I mentioned, if you check out the YouTube video, there's a lot more you're going to find, a lot more details you're going to find of all these things that I'm talking about here. Check that out. Okay, now configuration, basic configuration, advanced configuration has been done. What about end user experience? Exactly what the users see. It's very important for us as administrators to understand exactly what users are experiencing, right? So let's look at that. These blocks, these products that I've shown before, they all exist as the first starting point for users. User goes to the Microsoft 365 training page. They go select a product. After that, they see the different playlists that are available in the product. Then they see assets in each playlist. An asset, as I mentioned before, is a learning unit. So it could be a video, it could be an article, it could be a combination of both. Okay, and that's how the trajectory happens. First they land on the portal, then they go to the product, they go to playlist, and then an asset. Digging into this a little bit further, the anatomy of an asset, very important to understand exactly what it looks like. So when you go into an asset, when you go into a learning unit as a user, this is what you're going to see. First, you'll see some navigational components. So you got the previous button, you got the next button. This is a drop down that they'll see to be able to go between different assets. And then you got the breadcrumb here. Okay, the breadcrumb can let you go ahead and navigate from place to place. In addition, if they want to search for all different assets, here's the search icon. This will let them search any repository. Well, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. This will let them search the whole repository of learning pathways. So they can search from here for even things regarding Teams or Yammer or whatever else, even though they're in OneDrive. So that works pretty well. Now, a couple of things to understand here. I think I have this in the next slide anyway, but I'll mention it right now, is a few caveats when they're on this page. When they're looking at this page and there's, of course, a browser address on that page, they can't just take that browser address and send it to someone and expect that the person, when they click on it, will land on this page. It doesn't work that way. There's a concept in learning pathways of deep linking. The deep linking basically says you have to actually click on this link over here. It will show you the deep link of this particular asset of this learning unit, and then they can give that to someone or just make it available somewhere. Okay, so that's not as intuitive, unfortunately, but that's just how it is. Another thing to keep in mind is when they're going from one asset to another asset, next, and then if they click on the back button of the browser, that's not a great experience, unfortunately. That's just how it's designed right now, that if they click on the back button, they'll land on the product page if that's where they came from. So instead of going to the previous asset, they'll just end up on the previous page. Since this whole thing is as an actual page and you have to go from previous to next to go to different assets. So please keep that in mind. I'll show you that as well pretty soon. And then lastly, but definitely very important to understand, is that there's this gear icon, which exists for users as well. You want to be careful and tell them not to click on this because this is, they get to a page which says, this is an admin page. You don't have rights to this page. And it is what it is. So it's not a great experience, unfortunately. They need to understand that this gear is there, but they should not be clicking on it, which is unfortunate, though, just the way it is right now. You can probably use some CSS to get rid of it, but other than that, it just stays there. And you just have to let them know they should not be not going there. Okay, so a few other things before I dive in and show you some of these things. As I mentioned, users start their journey by visiting the Learning Pathways site. They navigate to the training page, the product page, the playlist, and an asset. The ability to navigate and search assets is there. It's all good. The caveats, as I mentioned, the browser back and forward buttons don't work as expected inside Microsoft Learning Pathways. So that's definitely a learning experience for the users. And also the linking of it. In order to link to a specific asset, it's not really logical. You can't just go to the address bar. Okay. There is a video showing all that stuff as well, which I'll show you a few of these right now, a few of these things, but there's a video showing exactly what I'm talking about here. That's about 5.5 minutes here. Okay, so let's look at it from a user perspective. I have Miss Adele over here once again. Going back over here to home. Let's say she comes, okay, let's actually start from the beginning. From this portal, she comes to Microsoft 365 training. Then from here goes to OneDrive and says, okay, I want to understand what OneDrive is. Let's go into, how about this one? Manage your files with OneDrive. Okay. Okay, so this is the asset. I've come from product to playlist to asset. Within this asset, as I was saying before, you got this navigation drop down. You have, I actually didn't mention this part, full screen. I can do this full screen here easily. I can go previous, next, great. If I click on this browser back button, this is, as I was saying, you end up on the main Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways page, which is kind of disorienting for users a little bit, but it's good to understand at least what's going on, so you're not caught flat-footed when you're explaining this to your users. So once again, they have to actually go to OneDrive, go to manage your files with OneDrive. So that's a little, yeah, it's not the great experience in this particular case, but it's good to know what it is and what's not. Okay, so breadcrumb will let you navigate, like I was saying. Next and previous will let you navigate. This will let you navigate, and they can search, as I was saying over here. So if I do a search for, let's do a search for channels. Here we go. Now it's showing me collaborate in Teams and channels in Microsoft Teams. So it's jumped from OneDrive to Teams, and I can get content for Teams. And the assets themselves, you got a video, full screen, all that good stuff over here that you can do. And then you got the text underneath it. Okay, so they have to come to this site, and once they come to this site, all this good stuff is available to them. Now, as I was saying before, if you want to link to this site, they can't just say, okay, let me link to this, send it to my colleague, because when they do that, the colleague will end up at this page. Then they'll be disappointed, unfortunately, because, hey, I thought I was sending them to this page. No, you actually sent them to the main training page. So to send them to this particular page, you have to click on the link icon, copy this link, which is called a deep link. And now I'm going to actually put this into the browser. And that should take me to that particular page, the overview of teams and channels. And then they can actually go from place to place, check out all the different videos and different articles underneath it. Okay, something to keep in mind, definitely a big caveat that you should know about as administrators. Alrighty, and here we go. Let me click on this gear icon, as I mentioned to you before. So if I do click on the gear icon and I am not an administrator, oop, here we go. You don't have rights to administrate custom learning for Office 365. Please talk to administrator about joining the owners group. Okay, so yeah, that's unfortunate, just the way it is right now. And then there's not even a back button here, so I'm kind of stuck over here because I think I opened up a new tab. Okay, just try to hide this one or do something so people are not clicking on it. In my opinion, that would be very helpful to not confuse your users. Alrighty, let's keep going here. Next big thing, how do you get people to the Learning Pathways site? Very important. Learning Pathways is a SharePoint communication site. It is out there somewhere. Where is it? How do I know it exists as a user? How do I get to it? Here are a few possibilities. First, you link to the site from your site navigation top link bar. Now, there's no global navigation within SharePoint that's built in, right? You can buy global navigation menus and stuff like that from third party, and global navigation might come in SharePoint itself also later. But currently, you have to use some hub features, some other kind of features to kind of finagle it and make it where it's kind of like a top link bar, or you can just do a top link bar within each site collection. Oops. So yeah, you can put the top link bar navigation link on each site that you want to send your folks to Learning Pathways. Okay, that's first thing. Second, you can also add the SharePoint site directory page, the main SharePoint page. You can put Microsoft Learning Pathways as a featured link. Very possible to do that as well if you want. And third thing, you can also encourage folks to bookmark the site. In our regular good old bookmarks in our browser, remember those? Sometimes that's needed. Think about it, because if they're in Planner, okay, let's take that specifically. You got them into Planner, you're doing all that good stuff, and they're just did for the first time. They're like, I don't know what exactly is a tile, or how do I assign things to people, or how do I move it from bucket to bucket, what it is a bucket, and things like that. They'll need to understand Planner as a whole, and how will they know to go from there to their Learning Pathways communication site? Well, there's got to be a link, which you really can't control the links in Planner, right? That's I mean, same thing with Yammer, or same thing other places. You can't really control links like you can in SharePoint. So you need to give them some way to be able to get to that, and a regular bookmark in the browser would be the best way in this particular case. Okay, deploying Learning Pathways on other sites. So you got the SharePoint communication site, great. What about if you wanted to deploy the same functionality on another site? Can you do that? Yes, you can. Great. However, there is definitely a caveat for that. So the Learning Pathways is a web part. Okay, the main thing that I've been showing you is a web part. That web part is not automatically available on other sites. You actually have to add an app to each of the sites manually where you want the web part to be available. Once you add the app, then you can add the web part. So what I'm saying here, add the Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways app to your site, then you can deploy the web part on that page. And once you do that, then you can customize the web part as needed, show all products, single playlist, or single asset within that web part, however you want to. And obviously there is a video for that too. I'll give you a quick visual of what that looks like by clicking on this YouTube video here. So here we go. If you want to add a Learning Pathways web part, like this shows over, oh, crap, sorry. Here we go. Yeah, so by default, when you try to add a learning pathways web part, it will not be there on a different site. Like I'm doing this as Contoso Web 2. You have to add the app first. So you have to go and add this particular app, Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways app. You have to add that first. Once you do add that, I think I show right here somewhere. Here we go. Then when you do a search for web part learning pathways, that web part is going to be available, Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways. So yes, it is a bit of a manual process, but something to be aware of. You have to do that step by step. Okay, it's not just available everywhere automatically. Check out the video and you'll see exactly what I mean in that case as well. Usage reporting. How do I know if all the stuff that I'm doing is working, if it's helping my users? So I got some good news and some bad news here. The usage reporting is available, but it's available for the SharePoint communication site that hosts learning pathways. It's not necessarily for the learning pathways content. It's just for all the different components of the site. Meaning when you go into site usage for the site, which I will show you in a second, you'll see the unique viewers, site visits, site traffic insights, type of devices, and stuff like that. You'll see all that stuff there, which is great. It is fairly generic in nature because it is a regular SharePoint usage report. And yes, there's a video for that as well. But instead of showing you a video for that, let me actually just show you what it looks like. So here we go, back at the 365 Learning Pathways site, I'll go into site usage right here, gear, site usage. As an admin, I'll see over here what's been happening. Okay, there's been some usage, great. These are unique viewers. I don't know who the viewers are here. I just know that 2 unique viewers came on Monday, May 25th, and then 1 on May 27th. Same thing about site visits. Oh my God, 8,050% since last week. That's a pretty awesome spike, which is great, but I don't know who. Once again, these are just generic things it's telling me. And then this is pretty, this is nice to have at least, that tell me exactly which time of the day it's being used the most. And you can see that in the morning, it's being used quite a bit. Popular platforms, desktop, mobile app, tablet. It's been all the desktop activity here in this particular site. Most unique viewers are going to these particular pages, and then these are the most viewed pages. That's about it over here. So yes, it has a few analytics pieces over here. You can't see the exact components, the exact items that people are clicking on. You cannot see that. You can't see exactly who those people are either, unfortunately. You can just see this generic data here, but it's better than nothing. But this is all that you get out of the box here. Okay, you can use other platforms, analytics platforms, to do more stuff with it, but we would have to link everything up and do it manually. All right, let's keep going. Next thing here is the updating scenario, the updating options, updating learning pathways. Good news is that the content is updated automatically. You don't need to really do anything. You go to Adoption Tools, Admin Success Center, which, as I show in this picture over here where the Admin Success Center is, and you'll see what's new, what's changed and stuff like that, which is great. April 2020 was the last content update. Okay. The other news is the product itself. I'm sorry, it's not a product. Sorry, the solution itself, I should say, for learning pathways, that you would need to check manually from time to time to see, hey, if there's a new version. So you will go to Site Contents, Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways, go to Details, and if a new version is available, you'll see that Get It button. If it's not available, it'll say, hey, you are already on the newest version. Great. Roadmap of what's coming. Version 4.0 is coming soon. When I say soon, most probably in the next couple of months, hopefully even sooner. And one of the big updates in 4.0 is the inclusion of 8 other languages. So we already have English, obviously, as the default language, but it's also going to have Chinese, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Portuguese, Russian, and Spanish. So if you have your SharePoint site, communication site, learning pathways specifically available in those languages, you should be able to just send people there and they should see the content automatically in their language. So that's a good thing. Alrighty. So that's a lot of content regarding learning pathways. We're not done yet, but as far as the out of the box Microsoft Learning Pathways goes, this is the end of the story. Since Microsoft has made this as a open source solution, there's a better together story that Microsoft partners like actually ourselves also have taken on and build on top of. Microsoft encourages that because once again, it's an open source solution. There's no formal support provided for it. And so there are options, there are ways to build on top of it. And I'm going to show you a solution and talk about some of the possibilities of what you can do with it, of how you can build on it and what we have done with it. So building on top of learning pathways, you can take that solution and build a product. It's not automatically a product by itself, as I've said a few times, but you can make a product out of it. Partners such as ourselves also, they can take the content, they can take some of the pieces of it, and they can, once again, complete the story, make it into a product. Visual SB, our company, is one of those partners that has done that officially with support and blessing from Microsoft. So the story here is as follows. Visual SB plus Microsoft, learning pathways content stays together, which there's a lot of good content, over 700 videos, articles, and stuff from Microsoft within learning pathways, ability to customize and create your own content, wonderful. What Visual SB adds on top of that is that the content is delivered in context to users, right? I was talking about before the example about Planner. If I'm sitting in Planner and I've been sent over here and I need to do my job, well, how will I know where the content for Planner is? I have to know where to go to the Learning Pathways site. Well, what we have done with Visual SB is we deliver the same Learning Pathways content in context within Planner. I'll show you exactly what that means in just a moment. In addition, we're talking about the analytics. The analytics, you have some rudimentary analytics, which is great, but if you want more, there's other analytics available directly as part of Visual SB. I'll show you that soon as well. And then security trimming of content. So if you want to secure the content where people can see certain things, other people can see certain other things, that's also available directly through Visual SB. So you can say, all right, show this stuff to only people who have full design control, show this to who have read control, and everything in between. And then obviously, because it becomes a product with Visual SB, then there's full customer service support is available as well. I'll show you some quick screenshots and I'll jump into a quick demo. This is what it looks like. So this panel right here, the Visual SB panel, oops, this comes up and it shows all the content to you that's coming from Learning Pathways specific to the site, the application you're in. So because I'm in Microsoft Teams, it shows me all the Microsoft Teams content. Similarly, when I'm in SharePoint, it shows me SharePoint content. When I'm in OneDrive, it shows me OneDrive content, and I can always search for additional stuff as well. It's the same exact content, just delivered in context to the users. Similarly, within the Microsoft Teams desktop application, there's a story there as well where Visual SB comes up right there in the left rail. And all this content that you're seeing here is all coming from the same Learning Pathways repository that we've been talking about. And it's just there, it's just available to people right away. They click on it and it shows them the content. All right, so a bunch of stuff here. I'm not gonna go through all this stuff right here because I'm gonna actually show you a few of these things. Contextual delivery, usage reporting. You don't even need to deploy the communication site actually with this Visual SB solution. It just becomes available within a few minutes if you want to go that route. Security trimming, easier customization, and you can even push the content. So imagine you want a video or something to be pushed directly to people when they come to a certain page, you can push that into a dialog box, and then the full support of the product. Okay, so let me show you that quickly. You probably have already noticed this thing, the tab right here. You see that? This is Visual SB. The tab itself can be moved anywhere. Because I'm in PowerPoint, it says you got PowerPoint help. If I click on this thing, it shows me all the PowerPoint specific content. Add and delete slides. Let's click on that. Here we go. The exact same content that I would see in Learning Pathway communication site, but it's available right here. Same video, same article, And with Visual SP, we actually have even a free version of this where you can get all this content and this thing without any charge. Only if you wanted to edit this stuff and if you wanted to see analytics and things like that, then there's a charge for that. So managing these things, if I click on the edit for that as an admin, here's our editing panel here. Shows all different ways you can have all different kind of media types. We have currently pulling in a web page, but it could be a walkthrough, a video, banner, all kinds of stuff over here that you can do. And here's the actual article that we're pulling in this particular case for learning pathways. Okay. And now if I go to, like I said, OneDrive, here we go. Now it says OneDrive help. So it's very specific to where the users go, OneDrive help. And in OneDrive help, it shows me all OneDrive specific content, uploading files, same content. Okay. Overview, OneDrive overview. Here we go. Same exact thing, but now delivered much more in context. If I'm looking for something that's not available in this context, like channels, I click on the search the full library, and it's going to show me all the information we have in the repository about channels right here. Just a moment, because there's a lot of content, so it's pulling it up. Here we go. So it found 8 different things here. Favorite and follow channels. Here we go. Okay, and that's how Visual SP works. As I mentioned, there's a free version of this as well that you can get started with, just like that. If you want to see analytics of what's happening, if I go to view analytics from the menu as an admin, you can see all the clicks by application, clicks by browser, clicks by viewer media type, walkthrough, rich HTML, all kinds of different things that we have, even clicks by user. So now this goes in deeper. We've taken the learning pathway stuff, but we have taken our own product and let you know exactly which users are clicking and also what they're clicking on. So if you expand on that, it will show all the different content that they're clicking on. Okay, all the different URLs they're going to. And then also vice versa, the different help items that are out there and exactly, for example, the sum ifs function. Who's been looking at this one? I want to understand. Okay, so there's only one user in this particular case, but it shows you Megan has had 2 clicks. And then also search terms. What have people been searching on? All that stuff shows up here as well. See channels, I just did a search for that. So a lot more stuff that you can do within here. And that's what Visual SP does to give you further making into a product, completing the story of what you can do with learning pathways. If you want to get a complete understanding of what Visual SP does for learning pathways, there is a video for that as well. Check it out. If it makes sense, then please go to the visualsp.com site and check out how you can get started. In fact, that's the call to action. The next slide. A couple of things. I've been talking about Microsoft Learning Pathways, which is a great foundational solution. You can get started with that with aka.ms M265LP. If you want to check out Visual SP for Learning Pathways, which I just showed right now, and get started for free, you can do that at visualsp.com. You'll see that in the products menu. There'll be Visual SP for Learning Pathways. Here's the exact URL of where you can go to get started. And if you have any questions, feel free to connect with me directly. Asif Rehmani is my Twitter handle. Asif@visualsp.com is my email address. All right, and then there's, I'll leave this up just for a few seconds here. Speaker feedback, event feedback. You can check this out. I really appreciate all of you being here. I'm going to check out if there's any questions and see if I can respond to some of that stuff here, if I can figure that out. But either way, thanks so much for being with me this morning. Let's see. So questions and answers, here we go. Where can we find slides of your presentation? Slides will be available directly from the conference organizers, but you can also go to slideshare.net. In fact, you know what? I'll probably do that for you guys right now. Why not? Slideshare.net. And I believe it should already be indexed. Let's see. Aha, there it is. So I'm going to go ahead and copy, put this into the chat or the Q&A, make an announcement. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, that's the slides right there.